You ever have one of those belts that just feels polarizing? Like everyone's going to have an opinion on it firmly, one way or the other? To me, this is one of those. So you saw uh, the short that I put up the other day, teasing that this review was coming, and it's here. So before we jump into this, let's go back to the unboxing. So this is a belt that I picked up roughly a week ago, and it was stateside, obviously. It came from New Jersey, and this is one of those belts, if you know it, you'll know it as soon as you see it. If you don't know it, I guess you're coming along for the ride. So I have not seen this belt in person, obviously, because it has been boxed up and heavily taped. So right now, if I can cut this thing open. He did say, the seller did tell me, because I'm nervous about shipping belts. He said, I'm OCD about it. He said, I pack extremely well. So far, just based off the problems I'm having with this tape, I'd say he's not lying to me. Okay. Again, I'm holding the razor blade away from the opening of the box. I do not want to cut this belt with the razor. So I'm just being extra careful. But this is something, if I can get this box in frame, there we go, that'd be nice, wouldn't it? There we go. Okay, get rid of the razor blade. I may need it. We'll see how he's packaged this. He did heavily bubble wrap it. Leather feels amazing on this in terms of like pliability and flexibility and stuff. Take this off in one shot. Bear with me, guys. Trying to do this in one shot. There we go. Get the bubble wrap out of the way. There we go. So this is obviously a winged eagle, but not your average winged eagle. It's Arosha belts with a textured, very heavily textured winged eagle. Obviously, I'm gonna give its history, why it is, how it is, and all that sort of stuff. I'm just giving you a once over of this belt. I got to ask some questions to the previous owner, the guy that had it made, about the manufacturing process on it. Nice diamonds on the tip, like the WrestleMania 4 version would have. One-piece tip. Okay. So I am going to get out of this unboxing. First impressions, I do like it. The leather itself is amazing. This is not Omi quality, but it's not far off in terms of flexibility. Backing feels nice and smooth, but again, we'll get my expanded thoughts in the review. So as you saw from the unboxing, it was packaged very well. I don't know if I mentioned who I bought it for. I think I did, but it's Jason Snyder in the hobby. And so this belt has made its way around. I'm the 5th owner of this belt. I've been able to get the chronology of all 5 owners. So this is an HD 24 karat gold Arosha Belts winged eagle. This was made by Arosha Belts at the direction of Gary Sutton. Gary then went on to sell it to Skullman from Skullman Belts. After that, Skullman moves along to Jonathan Michael in the hobby. Jonathan sells it to Jason. Jason sells it to me. So this thing's been passed around like a joint at a Pink Floyd concert. But I've had it for a little over a week now. I do enjoy it. I think it's a great looking belt. It's one of those that when you first see it, you like it or you don't, and then sometimes you never warm up to it. I have warmed up to it. You know, it's just when I first saw this belt a year and a half ago or whatever, I was just like, it's a different take on a winged eagle. You know, not my thing. Whatever. I unless it's a purposely like my stacked big eagle from Arosha, I always strive for ring accuracy. So this kind of isn't my thing. But the more I looked at it, the more I noticed little features, the more I liked it. And so when it came up for sale, probably 2-3 weeks ago, I just shot Jason a message. I said, just let you know, If nobody pays your asking price, you have a standing offer of this from me. He said, okay, I'll get back to you. Thank you. Roughly a week went by. Nobody had bought it. So he messaged me back and says, will you meet me at this price? I said, yeah, sure. So not going to divulge what I paid for it, but I am happy with it. And so before we get into the review, if this is your first time watching or your first time in a while, do me a favor, hit that like button. If you're not subscribed, go down there, hit that subscribe button. It helps you get more wrestling related content in your algorithm. It helps me keep this channel growing. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. We'll do more reviews. We'll do more belt chronicles. We'll do a mixture of a lot of different things. So the reason why I preface that saying if you're new here, it's been a while. When we do reviews, there's a rule we can't break. That's it. That is. We have a little celebration, little drink, a little pour. So, what am I drinking this time? Well, this is called Tomstown Double Oaked 90 proof whiskey, 90 proof bourbon. Excuse me. This is made right here in Kansas City. If I can focus that in. Kansas City, United States. You can see that right there. This is actually a distillery that's here in Kansas City. And about 10 years ago, it's 2016 if I'm being accurate, I took a tour of this distillery with a girl I was dating at the time. And I got to say, it's really good stuff from what I remember. So, the reason why it's called Tomstown is because Tom Pendergast ran Kansas City for the most part. He was a city councilman, then later became the head of the Jackson County Democratic Party, and he was he was the guy. Put it this way: if Al Capone ran Chicago, Tom Pendergast ran Kansas City. If that makes sense. And so they named the distillery out of one of the most infamous people in the history of Kansas City. He struck up a relationship with Harry Truman because Harry Truman served in World War I with Pendergast's nephew Jim, and the building itself was at one point a car parts factory, and it caught fire. And later, that factory, after it caught fire, that building was bought by the Cherry Mash Candy Company, and they were producing Cherry Mash candies in the 60s. And then the building had different owners and was used for probably event spaces and offices and stuff like that throughout its life until Tomstown moved in, and they make their own whiskey, their own vodka, and their own gin. This is their double oak bourbon. Excuse me while I have a bit. Yeah, that is delicious. Wow. I remember we were taking the tour. We're down in the basement. They're showing us, the bar that's down in the basement. By the way, he's the guy that had speakeasies were happening in Kansas City, and Tom knew it, and Tom was the one cashing in on it. The bar down in their basement kind of looks like a speakeasy. And I remember they were giving us each samples of the whiskey, the vodka, and the gin, and they asked a question about the whiskey. I can't remember what their question was, but I remember going, no, but it's good though. Because I took a sip. I couldn't believe how smooth it went down. So we're going to get into this belt. So I bought this belt, like I said, a couple weeks ago, and I reached out to Gary. Gary Sutton knows that I have his old belt. Got some specs from him, and I said, tell me, is it CNC? Is it, what is it? He goes, nope. He goes, just acid etched HD. I said, the plates don't look 4mm. He goes, they are not. They are 3.2. So I actually took my digital calipers. I'll put that clip up on the screen right now of me taking the calipers to this belt, and you can see it's 3.3mm on the calipers. And if you think like a Winged Eagle is mundane and boring, and nobody ever does anything with it, they're all run of the mill, all cookie cutter. Well, this is going to scratch that itch for you. There's a lot going on with this Winged Eagle. So, like I said, 24 karat gold, acid etching. You can see the nugget texturing everywhere on this belt. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to unsnap it. I'm going to start at one end. 2x5 snaps over here. WWF logo embossed in the male or female snap box. So you do have a WrestleMania 4 style one-piece belt tip. You do have your property plate with tooling around it. I do love that touch. I always have. I do love they threw in the little triangles up here in the perimeter of the where the property plate goes. Not all of them have that. That's kind of, Reggie would do that sometimes, not all the time. I think it's a nice touch. WWF champion plate with texturing in there, all gold. It does appear to be the same thickness as the rest of the plates. So instead of the 2 millimeter version of this property plate, we're looking at actually 3.3 here. Like I said, HD. I'm going to, there you go. The WWF logos are dual plated. They're nickel where everything else is gold. And it's funny because when I showed Gary this belt, he had no clue I had it. I didn't tell him until after it came in. And I had it under a towel, and we were video chatting, and I told him, I said, video chat me. I said, I got a belt that I want you to see. I said, I know you're no longer in the hobby, but I want you to see this first. I pulled the towel off, and his jaw drops, and then he goes, hang on. He goes, is that my old belt? He goes, show me the logos. Because he knew the logos would be nickel plated. And we move over here. The banners are all textured, where this would be painted in black. The only paint on this belt is the heavyweight banner. You have texturing in all the negative spaces of the sunburst pattern around the grapplers. You have texturing on the bars. You have texturing on the World Relief banner. You have texturing in the globe. And what's really cool, I like this the more I see it, the extra flocking on the wings. So if you think back, I have a WCW 5-plate US, and that one has extra flocking on the wings, just like this one does. I think it's a really nice touch. Good detail down by the feathers. Good detail around the stars. I always say if you want to judge a winged eagle and how crisp the etching is and stuff, look at the stars on the banner. Some of them will look like blobs. Others will look crisp like this. The same specs repeat over here. Texturing in the recessed portions on the bars and on the side plates. More texturing over here. Obviously, it repeats. And then you have this warrior pattern, and then the Ultimate Warrior pattern. Then you have 2x8 over here, and you have the maker stamp up here. So that's it as far as like just a rough once over on the belt. I am typically not a round cut type of guy. I typically like the tighter cut, what I've dubbed the screw job cut. It's the belt that was used during the Montreal screw job. But I got to say, on this belt, with all the texturing and how busy it is, the round cut is not an eyesore for me because there's so much to grab your attention. You ain't really looking at that leather cut. That said, I don't mind it. You know, the only criticism about a winged eagle is obviously these wings will stick you in the neck sometimes if you're wearing it over your shoulder or whatever. You're taking it to a fan fest. That's the only thing. But with the strap encompassing the wings, it's not really going to happen. So that is a plus. And so this belt is actually very, very light. Like I said, it's not actually 4 millimeters. It's the old Reggie standard from the early to mid 80s of 3.2. And so I actually have my shipping scale. And I will put the photo up right now of the weight of this belt. It comes in at 6 pounds 2 ounces. So it is, if those of you out there that prefer lightweight belts, this is probably gonna this would probably satisfy you in terms of weight. You're gonna feel no pressure on your shoulder or on your back if you're carrying this thing around at a wrestling show or at a fan fest or something. It's a very, very easy belt to transport. It ain't gonna fatigue you. So there are some defects. There are some things that the maker could have done better, and we're going to get into those right now because it wouldn't be a review if I was just sitting here singing its praises, right? So the first thing Jonathan pointed out to me, he said, "You notice it's missing some gold?" I said, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "Look in between the sunburst pattern and the twisted bar. Look at these two horizontal bars. So in between here on the main plate and here on the horizontal bars, you will see that some of the gold is not there, right in here." Trying not to hit my phone. Right there, and also right there. So that's a little defect there. Not the end of the world because, like I said, with everything else this belt has, you don't notice it. If he had not explained that to me or shown that to me, I wouldn't have noticed it. The other thing, as far as the plating goes, is you'll see this logo plate has, if I hold it up under the light just right, you will see some lines, like scratches. It's actually the plating. I don't know if there's scratches in the plating or if it's the plating buckling, coming, flaking off or whatever, beginning to do that. but I know it's been doing it for a while because I watched Skullman's review on it. We were trying to make sure it was the same belt because apparently there's two belts like this floating around in the hobby, and um, didn't want to confuse one for the other, and so we were basically dissecting it and going, is this the same? Yeah, that's the same. And so one of the things I looked at in Skullman's review, I noticed the property plate right off the bat, and it's the exact same way in Skullman's video. So um, is this the same belt that Skullman and I have had we've owned the same belt. We've done that a couple times. That Ric Flair Legacy belt that he had, I sold him that, and I kept the robe. Like I said in the video, all I wanted was the robe. I didn't care about the belt. So he had the belt for a while. I think he's moved it on. Another critique right here is the warrior pattern that's kind of wavy. It's not straight. Somebody obviously, had their tooling bit. They didn't have it straight up and down. They had it kind of at an angle. Just a minor mistake. I don't really care about that because most of the time it's going to be snapped together like this, right? You're not going to see that. So the other thing, this is kind of unfortunate, but it is repairable. The backing is coming off this belt. Now, it is burnished. You can see that. Let me... Come on, focus. Here we go. It is burnished. But for some reason, the backing, especially on the bottom, has decided to start lifting up. And I don't know if that's a manufacturing error so much or if it's just the way the belt's been handled. If you remember when Gary was in the hobby, he was always taking his belts out and putting them in under, on rocks and near waterfalls, or taking photos with them. He took I think it was a 2D Big Gold he took to the top of the Empire State Building. Point is, his belts don't sit around and collect dust. He takes them out and carries them around and stuff. And so the backing, see that? The backing is coming off from the rest of the strap. So my plan is to have a leather guy either reattach the backing, or just do all new backing. I want to keep the strap the way it is, but just do new backing. So that's the only thing that kind of sucks about it is the fact that it, didn't hold up that well. Oops. There goes my mic, or the case for my mic. There's some more peeling up there. So I don't know who to blame this on. I don't know to blame it on the maker or blame it on previous owners. So, but that's just the way it looks. That's the way it is. So you got to live with it. So what is upcoming for Mr. Cynical? Well, I have 3 episodes of the Belt Chronicles that I want to get done. I want to take you guys on that long-awaited tour, at least for me, because I want to get it out of the way, of the wrestling room downstairs. I finally have time to shoot everything. Everything is back in my collection. I'm going to send a couple belts out for restoning, so we're going to have a couple restoners on the channel in terms of their work, and that's going to take probably till the end of the year. Put it this way, enough content to get us out of the year is the way I'm looking at it. So the next one is probably going to be the wrestling. No, the next. Yeah. I'll do the wrestling room next. So the next video you're going to see is the tour of downstairs, where all my belts reside and other little things from the wrestling industry, including, this is something I never thought I'd share, but including something that's ring worn. Stay tuned for that. I'll see you guys on the next video.